Howdy everybody, my name is Broxter, and this is that new thing that I was talking about a week ago. That's not how you start a conversation. We're going to be trying something new, something that I think would be fun for this channel, and it's one that I myself am personally excited about, and that's stories. Stories they're all over the internet, right? They could be funny, they could be stupid, they could be really, really scary, and I would like to go through a lot of these stories, and that's exactly why we're here today. But the twist is, I've never actually read any of these stories, so we are reacting to it together. And today, it's gonna be scary stories. And oh boy, am I excited. Since I'm looking at these things on Reddit and these stories are typically pretty short, I'll probably include a couple of them. But enough tiptoeing around it. Let's get right into it. My mother had been kidnapped a year ago, and I'd been lost ever since. Talk about a hook. God, man. Everyone has moved on, and she has been declared missing. I do miss her, and the food I've been relying is mainly taking away. Okay. Thinking about the food. There's nothing like homemade mother's cooking. She was living with me, and when I came home from work, she would make sure that I had something to eat. The world has moved on, and now I must come home to no mother. Everyone needs a mother, and you don't realize the things they do until they're gone. Yeah, but here's the thing. You seem to be focused on the meal aspect of your mom, and not everything else. You are an interesting individual. Then a new cafe opened up and I went in there, all alone. I don't feel like talking to anyone anymore. I've been mocked and called a mother's boy. I don't know anymore, and I'm just passing through life. You're passing through life without proper mama's food, I guess. Then as soon as I got a table for one and ordered a meat pie, I didn't expect much from it. Then as I started to eat the meat pie, I couldn't believe it. It tasted exactly like my mother would cook it, and right down to the smallest millimeter. The millimeter of your mother's cooking? It tastes like her cooking. The texture and love. It had a mother's warmth. I paid them way over the amount and just walked off. I couldn't believe the pie tasted like my mother's cooking. I'm gonna make the bold assumption that your mother is not actually dead and instead just decided to wander off. Probably because you only cared about her with her cooking. I don't know. I went back into that cafe and anything I ordered there, it tasted exactly like my mother's cooking. Then the owner of the cafe sat next to me and randomly said that he was my father. What is this, Star Wars? You have Darth Vader owning a restaurant? He showed me pictures of my mother when she was young and when I was a little boy. We got a DNA test and he was indeed my father. So many twists and turns in this story. I was always told that he ran away never to be seen again. I got to know him, and one day when I ordered more food from my father's cafe, it tasted exactly like my mother's cooking. I started crying, and I asked my father where he had been all my life. Then he said, I got out of prison a year ago. And then things started clicking together. He had a sinister look about him now. Because you found out that he's a felon? You've always been a mother's boy, even when you were a child. So I tried to kill you, and I got put in prison for years, my father told me. You've got a weird family, dude. Also, where is your mom? What's happening? Where's mom? I shouted at him. She down the cellar, and she cooked all your meals. She really does love you, but boys who receive too much love from their mother become weak men. Then someone locked the cafe door, and I was the only customer there. My father explained to me how much he hated mother's boys. It's better this way, and at least I got to die with my mother, as it beats living without her. Alright. We are off to just a fantastic start when it comes to stories. This thing had more twists and turns than that ride from Disneyland. Race Mountain, Rock Mountain, I don't know, doesn't matter. There is a lot happening in the story. Wow. I laid on my sad excuse of a bed, a tiny mat in my closet-like room. I'd been suffering night terrors for months. I'd wake up bleeding, screaming, crying, and tonight, I woke up paralyzed. Okay, I can understand the screaming, the crying, the bleeding, not so much. I think that warrants an investigation. I couldn't move anything but my eyes, and in the corner of my room, there was a formed shadow in the shape of a very tall, older gentleman. He was wearing a dark professional suit that looked very new and well kept. It looked oddly vintage and stylish. He had a cane with a briefcase to pair with his tall, wide-brimmed top hat. Oh, guys, it's him. It's the Hatman. His skin was deathly pale, clammy, and swamp-like, but I thought he was a shadow. I thought this was a shadow figure. How can you tell that he's clammy and pale? His expression was solemn and blank. He was looking downwards and looked built like a goddamn tank. Okay, which looked strange for someone so old. His presence was violent and incredibly imposing. I began to fear for my life and begged and willed my body to move. My body snapped out of it, and I could move if I wanted to. Yet still I did not. I looked again, and he was still there, silently observing. What a disturbing and perverse individual. Panic and terror paralyzed me. I was so scared I couldn't breathe. I looked again. You've got some weird neighbors is all I'm going to say. Listen, I understand that fear is a big motivator and also a big, hinderer, if that's even a word. But still, if there is a man in the corner of my room, I don't care how scared I am. Something's got to kick in, fight or flight, and you are doing nothing. I silently screamed and looked at the light switch. I followed my instincts and crawled to the light without looking. You crawled? You could crawl, but you couldn't run? If I looked, I'd be too scared to move again. I reached shaking and trembling on my knees and barely flicked on the light. I looked in the corner where he had been behind my tall lamp. He wasn't there. Whoa! I popped open my phone and played the happiest soothing music I could find and grabbed my trusty Bible. I focused on reading my Bible as I lay face down on my mat, reading and listening for hours until the sun rose, and I heard my mother's door open upstairs. I practically sprinted upstairs, sobbing and trembling, begging my mother for help. This is just not a great night for you. I'm sorry. That sucks, Chimp. I don't know what to say. I'm not exactly giving you any comfort, but it sucks. I now have an appointment with a 100 an hour... Wait, hold on. Time out. I'm going to stop right there. I now had an appointment with a $100 an hour witch doctor. My mother was visibly upset and shook. I think there are a lot more options that you could go to before you went to witch doctor. Hallucinations, those are a thing. My immediate first reaction is not, hey, let's go down to the old swamp and go talk to the witch doctor. At the end of the session, the powerful man was visibly shaken when I described the man. He shook and trembled while he wrote down a documentary site. He was already past his hour. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry that you didn't have $101 to have just a little bit more of a conversation. I wasn't the first person to come to him with such a description. He believed me. I was so wishing I was just insane. There wasn't much information on such things, he whispered in a hushed tone. He said the Spanish people and Spanish history is riddled with mythical creatures and dark terrors of the night. He said the Spanish take such things like ghosts and spirits much more seriously. That was all. He wished me luck. He had to go. He was already late. He biked 12 kilometers on a moment's notice to speak to me. So you are hosting this person. I thought that you just went down to some weird house. Still, though, I feel like $100 an hour is just a little bit much. I would have made him a lasagna or something. To say the least, I almost dropped my laptop. I couldn't finish the documentary. I was too shook. The Shadow Man left only to return a decade later. Who cares? I had reprieve for now. So this guy returns every decade? That's not too bad. I mean, look at it this way. In Pirates of the Caribbean, you got Davy Jones. I feel like he got a worse deal. 1 day on land, 10 years at sea.